I see so many people, like even ourselves, like myself. Uh, we don't spend the time practicing and learning and studying because we want to work, make money, and 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 that's going to make you get jobs that you don't want to. Spend a year, 2 years, at least learn the language, learn how to talk, so you can understand. You can pass an interview. You can know what you're saying. You can understand what they're saying to you.
Yeah, I think it's very easy for people who are coming from a different country. Like in our case, we came from Venezuela, right? And you have certain standard of living when you're living in your own country. Maybe back there you had a car, you had a house, you had a really successful life over there. But if you're immigrating, you need to know that things are gonna change, unless you're really wealthy and rich, you can have the same lifestyle here. But in our case, we needed to start all over again.
Yes, not only people think a lot about like job related and things like that, but sometimes when you come young to this country and you have kids here, or your kids like they grow up here, you need your language to be able to help them in school. Sometimes I see people that are limited with kids, and they think like, oh, they don't see the importance of it. But now that I have my kids and they're like in school and stuff like that, you want to be able to help them. You want to be able to like understand. You want to be able to like chat with their friends, and this is part of like life, right? It's
Hello, we're here today with Financial GPS. My name is David Cosma, my wife Daniela Restrepo. We do real estate and mortgages, and this is our first podcast.
Woohoo!
And
Yes.
the idea of the podcast is to share our knowledge as an immigrant, as a young couple, and be able to help everyone in Canada or U.S.
Okay, I'm Daniela, David's wife, like he mentioned. We've been married for 16 years and we have 3 kids. I'm also a real estate agent, and this podcast is to help people and guide people through the process of buying and selling real estate in Ontario and Florida.
Yeah, we've been doing this for 10 years, over 10 years, and we have the knowledge of the mortgage industry, also real estate in Ontario and in Florida. And the idea that we have is to have auctions for our clients, help them out with whatever they need when it comes to finances. And it's been a journey, right? Like we started when I started when I was 18 in real estate. And it's been a long journey, but we have learned a lot of stuff. And the idea of the podcast is to share the knowledge that we have and to help people to make the process smooth and make sure that they avoid issues in the future and problems. And I think now I can say that I have the knowledge to be able to do that.
And also share our mistakes, right? Because we learn from our mistakes and we have made a lot of them, but we want people to be able to start their process not making so many mistakes or none at all, and make it as smooth as possible. When you make so many mistakes, things take a very long time to accomplish, and that's the idea, to make everything a little bit shorter.
Yeah, if we spend 10 years building something, the idea is to help people build something in 2-5 years. Nothing happens, it takes time for something to build, and we just want to be able to share that and help people out. Especially for today podcast, we have a special guest, and he's a close friend of mine.
Just your friend, not her friend?
Yeah, both of us. He's also a client, and we really admire the process that he got into it. All the things that we have talked about. We're going to be able to share our knowledge today, and I'm happy to have you here, Alirio.
Thank you so much, David and Daniela. For me, it's an honor. and pleasure to be here with both of you. I've seen you from the very beginning, how you started off, and all the things that you've accomplished. I hope that my experience and my mistakes and my, things that I've accomplished can help every one of you who are watching right now. And yeah, hopefully I can be useful.
Okay, where are you from, Valerio?
I am from Venezuela. Was born and raised in Venezuela.
Perfect. And what city?
It's Cabimas. Cabimas is in the Zulia state. It's where the maracuchos are from. We're like, we say in Spanish is la crema de la crema, the cream of the cream. We're the best.
Okay, perfect. So, and when did you move to Canada?
I moved in 2010. So my wife and I decided to move in 2010. It was just the two of us. And I came here to study an MBA in business administration, specialized in marketing. And then, that's how I started here in Canada.
In what city?
We arrived in St. Catharines. St. Catharines is a very small town, which, by the way, I do recommend that, anyone who's planning to move to Canada and, they don't have a lot of money, I think is a good advice to move to a small city like St. Catharines because you don't spend that much money. It's less expensive.
Yeah. And my wife and I, we moved to Canada 17 years ago. Yeah. And we arrived to Toronto. We spent a few weeks in Hamilton. And it's been a journey. Like, we came from Florida. We used to live in Florida. But we're actually from Colombia. So, we've been married for 16 years. So she was 19, I was 20 when we got married, when we made the decision to move to Canada. And we basically came with 3 bags probably.
Yeah.
And then, the biggest bag was our dreams. We have so many dreams to accomplish, ideas. But the first part that it hit me really hard was to find out that Canada, it's a huge country, right?
Huge, yeah.
When one of my friends talked to me about Canada, I was thinking that it was full of penguins, igloos everywhere. And then I Googled it. And then I noticed that actually there's big cities, there's people. We used to live in Tampa, Florida, and it's a small town in Florida. So
the weather is nice.
Back then it was small. It was nice weather, but we didn't have the city that is Toronto. So it was really nice. I mean, the transition was nice. The only thing that hit me really hard was the weather. We came in October, so when we moved to Canada, it was really cold in a few weeks, and it was that was the hard part for me.
Yeah, I think it's funny because like in our case was the same thing. We did not know a thing about Canada. Initially, our plan was to move to the States because I lived in the States for 2 and so years in Boston. But then my wife's best friend, she lives in Calgary, and she said, why don't you guys come to Canada? And I said, well, I don't know anything about Canada. And I Googled it, right? So the first day that we arrived in Canada, it was our first time seeing the country ever. And I remember Googling it before coming here, before going to St. Catharines. And something funny happened. We arrived. We're coming from a city that is not a large city back home, but it is a city. And we arrived in St. Catharines. It was a Sunday, and there was no one because it was summertime. And we were like, oh my God, Canada has no people in it. At least I was now confident that people didn't live in igloos in Canada. I was like, yeah, there is no igloos. Yeah. Now we have houses. Anyways, all that to say that we went through the same thing. We didn't know anything about Canada. Yeah. And it's a beautiful country. And yeah, really happy to be here.
Yeah, I love it. We now we're Canadian citizens. Yeah. It's been a journey, and we have 3 kids. They're Canadians. They love the snow. They love winter. That's something that amazes me because normally they want to play outside, and they can spend 2-3 hours outside, no problem. Me, I can. Mm-hmm. So basically, the idea of this podcast today is to share the knowledge and the mistakes and the accomplishments that we have so far. One of the things that I talk to my clients about, especially new immigrants, and there's a lot of people coming in Canada lately, is that they should find out how can they become legally, like have a legal status in Canada. There's so many programs going on, even in the U.S., right? And sometimes people, they just come and they start working for cash. They don't get the benefit of becoming a legal resident. And there's a lot of benefits in Canada that you have if you have a legal status, right? So if they don't do that properly, they're losing a lot of opportunities.
100%.
And I think that's the number one uh, advice that I give to my clients. What do you think about it?
100%. So we came, my wife and I came as an international student. My wife came with me as a companion, right? And obviously that was a situation for me that opens the door for me to find a work permit and then have a post-grad work permit and then ask for the permanent residence and then become a citizen a few years later. I think that more than just, a lot of people say, and there are a lot of Venezuelans getting out of the country, and some of them have asked me, what is the easiest way to get to Canada? And I always say there are so many programs that allows you to come to this country. And once you're in here, there is always a way that you can get to the next step, right? So if you're currently not having a status, what that means for me is that you're going to close the door to all those dreams that you had when you left home. When I left my hometown, I said, I want to move to Canada because I want to do X, Y, Z. I have a lot of life projects, right? And if you don't have a legal status here, you won't be able to achieve that. And you will miss out on a lot of opportunity that this country provides. It could be, a government programs that allows you to open up a business, grants that allows you to, start off your education. Even going to an interview for a formal job, right? Can you find other type of jobs if you don't have a possible status? Yes. The question is that right? Is that the path that you want to follow? Are you willing to put aside your dreams because you just want to make a few bucks here and there? So my advice is, if you are in this country, make sure that you're getting started off with the right foot, making sure that you are getting your status the way that it should be. And if you don't know where to start because you're afraid, and I understand that, you might be afraid of, I don't know where to go or who to speak to, then that's where professionals are, important.
Yeah, I think it definitely puts a limit on your dreams and whatever it is that you want to accomplish. If you don't have a status, you live in fear. Like, I know a lot of people that live in fear, they can't be free. It's like you're lacking freedom, not only to do the things that you want to do, but also like something so basic as like going out, right? And I think that your peace, like having peace, just being able to like live your life and head out. Sometimes it's very necessary when you live in Canada, especially in the winter months, to like go somewhere outside of Canada. You can't do that, right? And like you said, there are jobs that people can get and you can make a life, but if you stay in that comfort zone, then you won't be able to, right, grow. And a lot of people do that they just get used to living like that, and they stay like that, right?
I think they're going to be able to survive, but they won't be able to
Exactly.
live. They won't have a life. They're just alive.
But again,
not
you
living.
said a very good word there,
Yeah.
survive. It's like you're in survival mode all the
Right.
time with
Yes.
everything.
Yeah.
And that's
sad. Like, you don't wanna do that,
you don't
right?
want to do that for
Yeah.
sure, yes.
Yeah.
And I believe that's the first mistake that I noticed. Second mistake, not learning the language. I give you an example, right? I see so many people, like even ourselves, like myself. We don't spend the time practicing and learning and studying because we want to work, make money, and that's going to make you get jobs that you don't want to. Don't be able to open your own business sometimes. So I think that's something that I give advice to my clients and friends that they just arrive. You know what? Go spend a year, 2 years, at least learn the language, learn how to talk, so you can understand. You can pass an interview. You can know what you're saying. You can understand what they're saying to you. And even if you want to go to college or university, right? You need to know the language, right? So I think it's really important for them to do everything properly and learn. Because a lot of people, they start working and they forgot about the language, right? And then when they start working and they get busy, there's no time to study. So that's the second advice that I said to my
Yeah.
clients.
100%. I think for me, language means opportunity. Like if you get to this country and you don't take the time to invest in yourself, because this is about thinking, where do I want to go? Do you have a clear goal in mind? Yes. Well, guess what? You need to ensure that you're speaking the language so you A, can actually take advantage of those opportunity, B, you can materialize those opportunity, and C, being able to leave a legacy. Like to me, when I left my hometown, I said, if I'm moving away from my family, I'm leaving everyone behind, the least I should be doing is making sure that I speak the right language, or I speak the language right, and then being able to start, taking advantage of those opportunities that are available.
Yeah.
Yes, not only people think a lot about like job related and things like that, but sometimes when you come young to this country and you have kids here, or your kids like they grow up here, you need your language to be able to help them in school. Sometimes I see people that are limited with kids, and they think like, oh, they don't see the importance of it. But now that I have my kids and they're like in school and stuff like that, you want to be able to help them. You want to be able to like understand. You want to be able to like chat with their friends, and this is part of like life, right? It's
100%. My wife. So this is something that I'm going to share about a little bit of a personal anecdote. My wife, when we arrived in Canada the first day, she said, I can't speak. And she got so frustrated because she couldn't communicate, right? She had a choice. She could have chosen not to learn the language and stay the same way. And maybe she will, get used to it. And she had the other option to learn the language and then being able to do something with it, right? Today, after so many years that we've been in Canada, she says, that was one of the toughest things that I had to do when I couldn't speak and I couldn't express. And what happened at that time is that she lost confidence on herself because she couldn't communicate. So as things as basic as learning the language so you can be, empowered that you can do whatever you can because you speak the language. So your confidence is going to increase. You're going to be able to live a life rather than surviving once again. Yeah.
And of course, if you know the language, you can apply for a job and get hired. Yeah. And that's the most important part, because what's the point of working those part-time jobs or maybe
extra hours,
getting minimum wage? Yeah. That's not the point that you came to Canada for.
Which is not wrong. I mean, in the beginning, I think it's fine if people start that way. I started off cleaning and in a call center and all that, right? But then that wasn't my goal. That was the means that I had to use so that I could get to the next step.
A transitional job.
Right? And today, I'm now a senior director of a media agency. I've worked for Amazon. I've worked so many places. But I clearly remember when I started off cleaning, I remember doing it and saying, is this where I want to be? Is the place where I want to stay? In reality is that it wasn't. And everyone who comes to this country has the opportunity to say, I can stay this way forever, or I can continue growing. I think it's a similar situation in your case. You also had those options because you worked in so many, areas, and today you're doing what you're passionate about, you're doing what you love to do, you're doing it as a family, and, that shows a lot of the importance of learning the language and committed to that and then being able to grow together.
Yeah. And if you get the job or you start your business, right, and you know the language, right, you're going to be able to have the job that you want, but at the same time, you're going to be able to start like having a financial plan, savings, retirement, buy a house, because you're going to make decent money to qualify for something like that, right? But that's the problem that we have, is that we don't follow the steps to do that. Normally people do everything bad works. And normally I'm going to give you what I see, right? I see that they come here, illegally or legal, they start working. They don't learn the language. They start working in anything that they can, get hired. And they don't get the job that they want, right? And of course, that's going to limit your chances to qualify for a mortgage in the future, to save money. And something that I noticed too is that after doing all this, people get in debt also, right? So instead of, buying a car cash, cheap car cash. They go and finance it. They get a lease. They get credit cards. So normally, what I see in the industry of mortgages is that people come to me and say, David, I want to get a mortgage, and they have a lease or a financing of a car of $1,000 a month, plus they have $20,000 in credit card debts, and that basically kills the deal, and they don't have the income to qualify for a mortgage. So something that I also give as an advice to my friends and clients is that don't get in debt. Try to use your own funds. If you don't have the money to travel in your savings, don't use your credit card, because it's going to take forever to pay that trip again. So if you do everything properly, you're going to be able to save money and qualify for a mortgage, and also do things that you like to do, right? But people make the mistake of getting in debt, and that's another mistake that I notice in the community.
Yeah, I think it's very easy for people who are coming from a different country. Like in our case, we came from Venezuela, right? And you have certain standard of living when you're living in your own country. Maybe back there you had a car, you had a house, you had a really successful life over there. But if you're immigrating, you need to know that things are going to change, unless you're really wealthy and rich, you can have the same lifestyle here. But in our case, we needed to start all over again. And yes, we got a car, but we got a car when we could pay the car. Yeah. Now, we did make a lot of mistakes. And one of those mistakes is, we waited so long to get into the real estate market that when we wished that when we wanted to do it, it just was really difficult. Either we were in debt, or prices were really high, or we really didn't have the right counseling along the way. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's good to clarify that credit cards are not bad. Yeah. It's just how we manage, right? And that we spend sometimes more than we can really afford. And people just think that idea of I spend now, pay later, but that really turns into a snowball that sometimes gets out of control, right? So it's good for people to know that credit cards are good to build your credit, but just knowing what you can spend, right? Having that money in your pocket and just trying to spend whatever you have that you have in your savings, and using the credit card as a way to build up your credit.
Something that has been helping me now that I'm thinking is, now in Canada, you can use your Visa debit as your credit card to pay a lot of things. So, if you use that as a credit card instead of using the actual credit card, let's say you want to buy something online from a store, X store, if you use your credit card, you're going to have to pay that credit card later on. You can use your debit Visa card, and that way you're not paying interest over that, right? That's something that has worked for me too. Like if you don't have the money in your pocket, then avoid spending more, because you're going to get in trouble.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's really hard for me, because basically I work with programs, government programs, that they'll give you the down payment. Yeah. And a lot of people, they just have to come out with their income, good credit, and they can buy a house. But a lot of people, they can't do that because their credit is ruined. So there's over 20 programs in Ontario to buy a house, and they'll give you the down payment. And people, they just don't qualify for the programs because they don't have the credit to qualify for. So I think it's really hard for everyone if they don't follow the right steps. Yeah. And at the end, that's the main goal, that you live in Canada, right? You want to buy a house. There's a lot of people, new immigrants in their early 20s, 30s. They're married and they want to buy a house, but they can't qualify because they don't have the credit to qualify. Yeah. So I think it's really important that to follow the right steps. It takes time, but it's a good idea if you do everything properly. Something that I talk to my family members, friends, is that's the reason that you live here, right? You want to have the goal in the future to, have a financial freedom. Yeah. You don't want to be working until you're 70. You want to retire if you're 60, 65, but sometimes people, they don't do things properly, and when they reach the age, they're still in debt. They don't have a house. They're still paying like $2,000 per rent. That's the minimum, right? That I noticed in the area. And that's $24,000 a year that is gone.
Gone to the garbage, just garbage. Yeah.
So I think that's the reason that we're doing the podcast, because we want to be able to help. Like we're going to start bringing professionals that know about investments, financials, uh, real estate, mortgages, and also I think I'm going to bring some friends that they're lawyers, because I want to be able to help everyone. The things that we have learned so far, like, it's amazing, because there's a lot of people with knowledge out there. They're doing podcasts too, right? And they're doing a bunch of stuff to teach the community and help out. So hopefully, in the next podcast that we're doing, we're going to start bringing those people.
Yeah, and just to know that if you have made a lot of mistakes, it's never too late. Yeah. It's never too late to learn the language. We know a lot of people that are maybe in their 50s, and they start a new career, they go to college, they start a new language, and it's not impossible. Yeah. It's very possible. I think that your mind limits your capabilities of doing a lot of things, and I think that if you maybe set that goal for yourself, you're going to be able to do it regardless if you made mistakes or not, or if you think it's too late. A lot of people think it's, oh, I'm just old, I can't do it, and it's not true.
Yeah, I agree. When you said about those programs, I think that is a key learning here, because when we come from South America, from different other countries, we become with this misconception that using the programs that are available from the government, some people may feel that, I shouldn't do that, or, they're going to look at me like, oh, he's taking advantage of that. Reality is that that's available for anyone in Canada to use, right? In our case, we bought our property through that one of the government programs, and David and Daniela guided us through the process, right? So it was very simple, as he said, it was just making sure that we had the income and that we had a good credit score, and that was basically it, right? So it is available to everyone. But making sure that you're having the right guidance will also make things easier. I made a lot of mistakes in the past, which is why it took me so long to buy our first property. I remember many, many years, David came to me and said that there was a property available for me to purchase. And I said, no, I don't want to move from Toronto, which is where I was living back then. And that was a huge mistake, because I could have easily, gotten into a property that today will be a lot more, there will be a lot of equity into that property. And it took me a while to learn that. And it was a mistake that, that I paid on a high price. And we were only able to get into our first property 2 years ago. Now, the learning for me there is that it is never late to get into the marketplace or the real estate. I think things are not going to be perfect. There is always going to be something that is going to be happening. But if you find the right people to guide you through it, it will make things a lot easier. And to listen to people, listen to whoever is helping you. Because if I hadn't listened to what he said, he gave me really clear directions. You need to do A, B, C, and D. If he is coming to me and he's telling me what I need to do, I should follow that, because he knows more than me. It's like a doctor giving you a recipe, not following that, you'll be like, you still be sick, right? So the guidance that they provide is very clear, very honest, and oh my God, I am so grateful, because otherwise I wouldn't have a property. So thank you again, guys.
So that was the idea, right? To help. I just want to help people. Of course, we're going to get the benefit, right, of keep learning, and I think it's grateful to have a job that you can help families, right? That's when I talk to my wife about it, we feel so proud and so happy when I see a family moving into especially right now, to our area, and you know what? They're young, their kids, they're little, and it's a quiet town where we live. And it's growing. So, but we help everyone in Ontario and even in Florida. If people wants to buy something down south, we're open to help out. We're closing. I'm really happy to have you here, Alirio. Thank you for being in the podcast, our first podcast. Our idea is to continue helping out, bringing more knowledge, and I feel grateful that you're here today. Thank you for your time. Please, everyone that follows me through Instagram or Facebook, We're going to be sharing this information on YouTube and Spotify, and hope to see you in episode 2.
Thank you, Olivia, for coming
No,
and for
thank
sharing
you,
your
guys.
experience with us as a newcomer.
Thank you, guys. We gotta celebrate this. It's your first episode, and I'm so honored, happy, and proud of what you guys have accomplished. So, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.